Hello and welcome to BusyWorksBeats.com. This is part 4 of FL Studio Week, aka Fleek. And in this video, we're going to go over the bass line and how to mix your song. So as we went along the song, there are certain things that had to gel together, like the chords, the melody, the drums had to add that rhythm to make everything fit. So once you have all those pieces together, you have to make sure that every one of the next steps are making those last steps make sense. Now what that means is you have to make sure the bass correlates with your chords and your melody so you're not throwing off the whole song. And I find that a lot of producers have out of tune bass because they're using 808 samples that aren't tuned, and they use out of tune bass lines that don't even match musically with the song. So what we're going to do is first show you how to tune in 808. This is more for the intermediate users. You don't have to worry about this. Again, you're going to get the project files. But you want to click on your 808 sample, and all 808s are in different keys for different reasons. It's not a musical thing. When you're programming 808s, you hear an 808 in your mind and you hear it at a certain tone and you want to create it at that tone. Then you go back and transpose it. So what that means is when you're creating 808s from scratch, the way we do it, it doesn't matter what the note is. You can always move it later. So that's why a lot of 808s aren't tuned. So anyway, what you want to do is open up your channel rack. You're going to find your 808 sample. You're going to left click it, and it's going to pull up the sample display. So what you want to do is right click and go to edit. What we're going to do is make sure we find out the pitch of this 808 sample. To do that, we're going to click on the flag here, and we're going to go down to detect pitch regions. This is going to pull up the pitches of the 808. You can see this 808 has only one pitch or frequency in it, which is A2. So keep that in mind, A. So we're going to X out of Edison because that was just, we needed to know what that letter was. Now we're going to click back on our 808. If you can't find your 808, go to your channel rack, left click on your 808 again. You're going to go to your envelope and instrument settings tab. And down here, we can set the root note for the sample. And this means this is how we're going to tune the 808. So you want to hit reset if this is not already at the correct letter. So in this case, it says root note C5, but in Edison, we read that the 808 is in the note of A. So what we need to do is change the C to an A. To do that, what we need to do is find A on the keyboard, which is right here, and we need to right click. If you do not right click, it's not going to do this correctly. You need to right click A. If you mess up, you can always reset. Right click on the letter that you saw in Edison. In this case, it was A. All right. So now we have the 808 tuned to A, and that means we can now play the notes in the MIDI keyboard and they actually sound like the notes instead of sounding like a complete different note. So that'll save you years of random not knowing this. Okay. Let's go to a new pattern, and on pattern 11, here's where we're going to start to add our bass. Now here we're going to do cool Drake slides like you hear in J. Cole music, Drake. So you want to click on your 808 and go to your wrench tool, and you're going to see here a polyphony section. Go to portamento and monophonic mode. And we're going to increase the slide meter to about 50%. Again, it's going to let us slide from one note to the next. Depending on your slide mode, okay, that's going to determine the time it takes to get from one note to the next. So now we're going to X out. And what we want to do is create really cool slides. So what I like to tell people is go to your chord pattern, in this case, pattern 7. So we're going to go back to pattern 7. Now this seems like a weird idea, but what you want to do is left click on your chord, and you don't have to go into piano roll, just left click on your main window and hit Control C to copy. And we're going to go back to pattern 11 for our bass. We're going to click on the 808 and we're going to hit Control V to paste that MIDI. So you may say, why would we ever play chords on a bass? Okay, so we're going to click inside the MIDI window now that we pasted it on the bass line, and we're going to get rid of all the top notes. So we're going to hit Control Shift, left click, and highlight all the top notes, and we're going to hit Delete to get rid of those. So now we have the bass note or root note of the chords as we go along. So all we have to do now for the bass is make sure we use a note that has the root note A and G at these points. Now we don't have to copy the same pattern as the chord. All we have to do is make sure we're playing at that note in this amount of time. So in this amount of time, we're going to play A. In this amount of time, we're going to play G. So along those lines, you just want to stick to that. So basically what I'm going to do is get rid of all the excess A's by hitting Control, left clicking and drag, and then hit delete. Same thing with the G, Control, left click, drag, and hit delete, so that I know where A starts and where G starts. So it's easier to look at. Okay, so now for our 808, what we're going to do is go to the playlist mode. Again, you want to do a lot of this stuff in context. You don't want to do it soloed out in the pattern mode because it might not mesh with the rest of the rhythms in the song. We're going to hit right click on track 6. We're going to name this 808. Hit enter. And let's see. And now we're going to right click and select pattern 11 from your pattern icon. Select pattern 11 and left click it in. Okay, so we're just going to left click and drag with our paint tool. Left click and drag it out. Or you can hit shift and left click to duplicate the pattern to drag it all the way out. So now we have the pattern of the 808 all throughout the song. Now what we need to do is give the 808 a defined length because we want that 808 Drake feel. So we're going to click on the 808 carbon and we're going to click on the envelope section. We're going to make sure we're on volume. We're going to lower all these parameters back to 0 and increase our hold parameter all the way up. What this allows us to do now is when we play a key on the keyboard, when we let the key go, the 808 stops. So we can let the 808 play for as long as we want. And we can make really quick slides. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to do all that cool stuff now. So those are all the steps to getting your 808 to slide. Remember, go to your wrench tool, activate portamento in monophonic mode, and increase your slide amount to past 50%. Also, go to your envelope mode, make sure you're on volume, lower all your parameters, and increase your hold parameter all the way up. And that's gonna give you the slide function. Okay? So notice how there's a lot of steps into getting your 808 properly set for actually making the bass line. So we haven't even begun the bass line, but you saw how we had to tune the 808. We had to give it monophonic slide functions. We had to give it a defined note length function. So it's a lot of stuff behind the 808 in FL Studio Sampler. So now let's get into the actual 808. Now, a quick way to write bass lines is we're going to go into the MIDI again, go to your channel rack, go to pattern 11 or whatever pattern your bass is on, click inside the MIDI window. A quick way to make bass lines is simply to use octaves. And what this means is the note A here, we're going to go from A4 and we're going to go up an octave to A5 every now and then. We're not going to do it all the time. But those are the only two notes you need to really focus on when you're creating a bass line. So again, you want to hear everything in context. So remember, the 808 stops whenever the note stops. So if we want it to stop here, okay, and make it groovy, let's add another 808. And it stops right before the snare, right before, you know. So I want an 808 octave slide from here down to A4. Oh, excuse me, A again. So we're doing octave jumps, A5, A4, two different octaves. Okay, now this G doesn't have to necessarily start right at where it started in the chord, so we can actually move this over. So we're gonna have a lot of bounciness, so we're gonna add another G at the end. So let's hear the 808 by itself so we can hear the rhythm. I'm gonna go to pattern mode this time, turn on metronome so you can hear the timing of the 808. And you can let these overlap note-wise, so you can drag that to overlap that note. Okay, so we have that portamento slide function active here. You can hear it slightly, and that's what creates that cool drop. Now I'm going to show you another trick you can use to add an actual slide. It's called inside the notation. So what I want this to do here is slide from G4 to G3 very quickly. So to do that, I'm going to make sure I activate G3 in the note somewhere later after G4. So you can see here, it's about 2 steps later. We're going to drag this and then we're going to double click G3 and activate the slide function. This is going to make the note slide from G4 to G3, a whole octave. So listen to how this 808 bends. Now it's very subtle, but that bend is going to basically make us feel like we're falling, and it's going to make the beat hit harder when it comes back to the beginning. So let's hear this in context. Let's take off pattern mode. Let's take off the metronome. And let's go to the playlist, see this in action. Now keep in mind, we haven't mixed anything yet, so everything's trying to fight for space. Just like our melody, our bass line is telling us here should be a change. There should be something different about this part from the rest of the bass line. So we need to make this unique. We need to click here and make it unique, or duplicate pattern 11 into pattern 12. Now we can edit pattern 12 by left clicking and go to edit pattern. We can make something different about this part of the bass line. So to hear it in context, you want to go to your playlist, make sure you hit control, left click and drag so that you're in that last 2 bars. Go back to your channel rack view, click on the MIDI, pull up your piano roll, or you could just click the piano roll button. Okay, now it pulls up the MIDI. So we can do something cool, like maybe a stutter effect. I'm gonna give this a higher octave instead of G4. I'm going to make that a higher octave. I'm going to highlight these 2 by hitting control, left click and drag. Then I'm going to hit control up to transpose it up 1 octave. So it's different than the usual pattern. So those variations are what you want to create. Now you can X out, go to your playlist, and now we can see, if we control left click to get rid of that loop, now we can see how pattern 11 is different from pattern 12. Again, same with the melody. You want to have that wrap up section about every 4 bars. So you want to select this pattern here, the 4th 808 run, click it and go to select source 12. In that case, these are identical now. So they wrap up at every 4 bars. Similar to the melody, it wraps up at every 4 bars, or every 4 bar stack, or 8 bars, whatever tempo you're using. It's usually every 4 bars. Remember, we're in double time. So 8 bars is technically 4 bars, okay? If you have subwoofers, it's best to hear your 808 with the sub on and then go back to mix it so that you can hear it over headphones. Okay, so don't get used to your subs being your go-to reference, because not everybody has subs. And that means if you're listening through your subs, you're hearing frequencies that people don't hear, and you think people hear them. So when you're going to the mixing stage, you're leaving out a lot of frequency, and it seems like your beat is very flat and stiff. So we're going to show you how to mix in this session as well. Okay, so now you're done your first beat. You understand mixing, you understand the bass line, you understand the melody, the chords, the drum patterns, and how they all need to be perfected before you move on to the next step. So each of these steps has a bunch of stuff you need to know about it. And that's why we have different courses to show you each of these steps, okay? And we've laid it out that way so you can understand it a lot better. Okay, so this, if you want to be better at mixing in particular, you want to click that link below for how to mix beats easily at busyworksbeats.com. It's going to show you everything you need to know about mixing to understand the basics to the intermediate. We even have a free advanced course, free trial for you to show you even advanced level mixing. So it can get pretty deep, because mixing is both editing, creativity, and there's certain rules to mixing. So there's different aspects of mixing. We go over that. So hopefully you understand a lot better how to create beats in FL Studio 12. We might even separate this video into 2 parts, depending on how we set it up. We don't know. We have no idea. But so thank you for watching today. Please like the video and share with your friends if you think they can become better at FL Studio or find this helpful. And we really appreciate you following the Fleek series, FL Studio Week, for Fleek, which is FL Studio Week. And Fleek will be released in a couple days. You know, we said a week from last week. So in a couple days, Fleek will be available. So you can click that link below and we'll have a link for Fleek. And you can find out more information there. So thanks for watching today. It's busyworksbeats.com.